Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and also good morning if you're on the West Coast. Appreciate joining us and also taking the time to join us today for a very exciting presentation by our discipline leaders and our subject matter experts. So welcome to the July Conservation Desktop and the Conservation Assessment Ranking Tool. Also, we call it CD/CART user form. So this is the seventh session of the series that we have been doing. So again, welcome, and we're here to give you a good show. I'm Nola Herbert. I'm Deputy Chief for Science and Technology. I want to welcome our partners that are on from the National Conservation Planning Partnership. This is a joint partnership effort to focus on field and our field tools needed to support our customers. The audience on the line are from National Resource Conservation Service, the National Association of Conservation Districts, National Conservation of District Employee Association, and the National Association of State Conservation Agencies. So as you can see, there's a lot of partners on the line. So a lot of interest in the tools, and also a lot of information to be shared. So and overall, the goal is to get these tools in the hands of our users and the farmers, so we can get conservation on the land. As the Deputy Chief for Science and Technology, I get very excited when we are able to roll out new tools and also share with you the tools that are have been developed and to be able for you all to be able to use it. So to that end, today you'll learn about several tools that are currently available in CD and CART, including a couple of that have been introduced in the last year. These tools are important development in NRCS effort to streamline processes and improve efficiencies in how we do business. The tools we are demonstrating today will all involve NRCS responsibilities related to environmental compliance. They include an integrated environmental evaluation process, allowing for a quicker completion of evaluation, less data entry, improved project integration, and faster turnaround for farmers, a compliance review module to support Food Security Act reviews. This replaces an outdated legacy system that greatly improves our ability to rely on real-time farmer and land data from Farm Service Agency. The highly erodible land and wetland determination request tracking tool, which for the first time has provided NRCS with the ability to track and manage this critical workload. We will have plenty of time at the end of the forum to answer questions, so feel free to post your question in the chat during the forum. There is a team running the chat and sharing questions with presenters to respond. This meeting is being recorded, and all information discussed today will be shared to the our NRCS SharePoint site. There is also a feedback form that will be shared to get your feedback for future improvement. Again, wonderful presentation. The tools that are being developed is for everybody to use. So again, thank you for the joining us. And next, I would like to introduce Barbara Prime, our National District Leaders for Environmental Compliance, located in the Ecological Science Division here in headquarters, Science and Technology. Barbara will be providing a bit of background information on agency requirement to complete environmental evaluation. Barbara?
Thank you, Nola, and good afternoon, everyone. As Noller said, I'm Barbie Prine. I'm the National Discipline Lead for Environmental Compliance here at headquarters. The NRCS, like every other federal agency, is responsible for compliance under the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA. As some of you may know, recently the USDA published revised departmental regulations that all USDA sub-agencies will follow to update policy and procedures under NEPA. The previous NRCS NEPA regulation found at 7 CFR 650 was rescinded with the revised USDA regs. However, under the new USDA regulations, the NRCS will continue to use the environmental evaluation process. The environmental evaluation process, which we document on our CPA 52 worksheet, aids the NRCS in fulfilling its responsibilities under NEPA and ensures our projects are thoroughly evaluated for potential environmental impacts. This is a core requirement under NEPA. The environmental review also integrates other environmental laws and regulations, such as the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, and National Historic Preservation Act, all to ensure our projects are legally sound, environmentally responsible, and transparent to the public. Today, you will learn about the NRCS environmental evaluation modernization efforts that have taken place within the agency's primary planning support tool, the Conservation Desktop. The new tool is known today as the CD Environmental Evaluation. I will now turn it over to Jeremy, the Environmental Compliance Specialist for the East Region, to walk us through the latest version of the CD Environmental Evaluation and the benefits that it provides. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Barbie, and greetings to everyone. During today's presentation, I'll be walking through the top 5 benefits of CDEE, highlighting enhanced process automation, data integrity, and user experience. We'll then follow up the top 5 benefits with a pre-recorded demonstration to showcase the tool's new features and system enhancements. And then we'll wrap things up on what we can expect to see in FY26. Now, before we explore what the top 5 benefits are, it's important to understand what Conservation Desktop Environmental Evaluation is and what it's been designed to do. Next slide. So CDEE is an approved NRCS tool that has been fully integrated into Conservation Desktop and Conservation Assessment Ranking Tool, both of which serve as the agency's primary planning support tools. CDEE was designed to function as a web-based alternative to our traditional NRCS CPA 52 worksheet, commonly known as the CPA 52 within NRCS. As Barbie noted in her intro, the CPA 52 serves as our agency's primary mechanism for documenting compliance with NEPA. Within NRCS is recognized as an all-inclusive and comprehensive environmental review checklist that facilitates our agency's compliance not only with NEPA, but other applicable federal, state, tribal, and local environmental laws and regulations. Next animation, please. All right, so now that we know what CDEE is, let's learn about how we can access it. So CDEE can be accessed through Conservation Desktop's interface by selecting the environmental evaluation from the table of contents within the customer's case folder. Upon opening CDEE, you will notice that the interface intentionally mirrors the structure and user experience of the CPA 52, providing for a familiar workflow for users. Now, at the top of each EE record, you will find 7 navigation tabs corresponding to the main sections in the original worksheet. Now, these 7 primary interface pages align with a specific section in our environmental evaluation worksheet, ensuring continuity and ease of transition for end users. Next slide. So now let's briefly talk about CDEE's integration and why it's been identified as an agency priority. So as we examine this graph, which compares the average time in years it may take to complete an environmental impact statement or an environmental assessment or an environmental evaluation, as shown on this graph, depicted as a red, blue, and grain bars respectively, we can clearly see that it can take anywhere between 2 to 5 years to draft a final EIS or a final EA. However, only a fraction of that time for an environmental evaluation. And when I say a fraction, I mean there's a considerable difference. For an environmental evaluation that's more complex, which requires coordination with external agencies, it may take days to complete, not years, as compared to an EIS or an EA. While on the other hand, for more routine and simpler projects, an environmental evaluation may take as little as anywhere between 1 to 4 hours. So, although it's important to underscore that NRCS has already implemented a streamlined environmental review process using the CPA 52 worksheet, the agency recognizes that this process can still be resource intensive, often requiring considerable staff time and coordination with external regulatory agencies. Next animation. Now, to explore this in more detail, when we look at the number of CART assessments planners complete on a yearly basis, we can estimate that on average, 150,000 environmental evaluations are processed to support Farm Bill financial assistance programs annually. So this within itself is a compelling reason for integrating digital solutions that modernize and further improve our environmental compliance workflows. Next slide. So the agency's efforts to modernize the environmental evaluation process moves us from relying solely on an Excel spreadsheet toward a fully integrated digital system. And while the spreadsheet has improved in recent years, it still requires extensive manual data entry and can involve cumbersome workflows. On the other hand, because CDEE is integrated with other NRCS business systems, it can auto-populate key data fields, significantly reducing redundant data entry, enhancing usability, and expediting the review process. And this integration not only simplifies the overall process, but also creates opportunities for ongoing enhancements and automation. Next slide. All right, so now we're going to review the top 5 benefits offered by CDEE. And it's worth mentioning that there are certainly more than 5, but we're going to focus on the ones that have the greatest impact at the state, area, and local levels. Next slide. All right, benefit number 1, integration with NRCS planning business tools. So unlike isolated Excel files, which are stored locally and lack connectivity, CDEE leverages existing agency tools like CD and CART, as already mentioned. More importantly, CDEE automatically pulls track and field information from Conservation Desktop and connects with CART to import assessment results, including baseline conditions, threshold targets, and planned practice impacts. This integration means fewer clicks, less repetitive data entry, and a significant reduction in duplicate manual inputs. Next slide. Benefit number 2, the copy functionality or saving a record as a template. Now, as you can see on the slide, items 1 and 2 shows how users can view existing EE records and identify a local template or a state template to initiate an environmental review that's already been pre-populated with essential information. For example, a typical or routine planning scenario, such as a forest management plan, a grazing system with water facilities, or an irrigation system, can be analyzed broadly and in sufficient detail to support similar environmental analysis across work units. So using pre-populated templates for common planning scenarios reduces repetitive data entry, allowing planners and RFOs to focus more on issues that might be of higher risk or more important to the analysis based on site-specific conditions. Now, when you look at item number 3 on the slide, it illustrates how users can utilize the copy functionality and distribute local or state templates within the existing case file or even across other cases. So the templates are not just limited to a particular client, but can also be distributed and applied across other cases. Another advantage offered by templates is that the updates can be made to a state template at any time and are also instantly available to all offices. So this real-time access eliminates the need for each state to manually update Excel spreadsheets and ensures all field offices are working with the most current information. Next slide. Benefit number 3, a state configuration of SEC guides in CART enable states to create and publish state-specific surveys. So looking at items 1 and 2 on this slide illustrates how national and state leads, such as state business tools coordinators, can use CART to configure SEC guide settings. Now, these guides are then presented in CDEE to aid planners in analyzing the effects on the special environmental concerns. Now, the SEC guides were designed to follow the same evaluation protocols as our national procedure guide sheets, and they serve as a decision tree to assist planners reach a conclusion about the reasonably foreseeable effects upon those resources. Now, if we look at item number 3, this one shows how states, as part of the SEC configuration, can deactivate SECs that are not applicable to their geography, such as coral reefs, coastal zone management, or essential fish habitat. So when a user opens the EE record in CD and lands on the SEC page, the deactivated SEC will be automatically toggled off, and a toggle off SEC indicates that the SEC does not require additional attention, so that the user can then focus on what is relevant to the analysis, which in turn saves time and eliminates the need to complete external checklists or guides. Next slide. All right, so for benefit number 4, the system supports simultaneous use between CD MapView and CDEE, making CD's geospatial resources readily available for reference throughout the environmental evaluation review process. Now, since Conservation Desktop already houses authoritative geospatial information, and in many cases state-specific published GIS layers, planners can visually compare this information with other relevant geospatial layers for a much deeper analysis. So, of course, this improves the quality of the environmental analysis and ensures planners have easy access to geospatial data to support more informed decision-making during the environmental review. Next slide. All right, so for benefit number 5, better user experience, e-signature capabilities, and document generation. So certainly more than 5 here, but let's take a look at each one of them. As displayed under item number 1, the web-based interface of CDEE offers a more intuitive and seamless user experience compared to the traditional Excel spreadsheet, allowing users to access the tool directly within the existing CD workflow. On the other hand, item number 2 shows how CDEE also supports electronic signatures for concurrence and approval, expediting the review process and ensuring planner certification and RFO approval is documented within the system. And finally, item number 3 illustrates how the system also generates a printable environmental evaluation report, making it easy to document findings, share results, and attach records alongside other supporting planning documents and related environmental review records. All right, so this wraps up the overview on CDEE's top 5 benefits, but up next, we're going to view the pre-recorded demonstration of the tool so that you can experience the user interface and its features firsthand. Next slide. All right, so now we're going to jump into the tool overview and demonstration for version 2.0 recorded in June 2025. To begin, access Conservation Desktop environmental evaluation directly through Conservation Desktop. Open the client's case file, then select Environmental Evaluations from the table of contents on the left. You'll see a table listing the existing environmental evaluations records associated with that case file. In this example, we'll be examining an existing environmental evaluation record where the EE analysis has been initiated and key sections populated with important information about the project. At the top of the page, you'll note that we have the CDEE record name, general workflow status, indicators, client details, practice schedule information, and at the top, we have 7 major pages that mirrors the familiar CPA 52 worksheet, such as the overview page, resource concerns page, human considerations page, special environmental concerns page, planner finalization page, R4 approval page, and then the attachments page. Each page guides you through key steps of the environmental evaluation process, ensuring that all key requirements are evaluated and considered as part of the environmental evaluation analysis. The subsections within each of the 7 major pages align with the sections found on the CPA 52 worksheet. For example, under the overview page, you'll find that we have client's objectives, the need for action, no action summary, alternative 1 summary. Navigating to the resource concerns page, you can see we have soil, water, air, plants, animal, and energy, also known as SWAPA. This ensures we're meeting planning policy and considering effects on the resource base. The tool also allows us to import or link the assessment data from CART, so you'll have up-to-date information about SWAPA all without re-entering data. This means that we can quickly identify which resource concerns are present, understand their status, and document how plan practices will address them. As you can see here within the soil resource concern category, we have the soil quality limitations, compaction, resource component imported from the CART assessment, showing the existing total, plan total, and the threshold. So this integration with CART not only saves time, but also ensures our environmental evaluations are thorough, consistent, and based on the latest available data. Navigating through the human considerations page, this is where we systematically review and document how the alternatives may affect these factors. Very similar as the existing CPA 52 worksheet. There are the special environmental concerns page. We list the 16 SECs that are required to be evaluated by NRCS. And for each SEC, there is a way to indicate if it's applicable, not applicable, or undetermined further analysis required. You can also use this functionality here, the toggle on and off button, to quickly exclude SECs that are not applicable. And a good example of that is states that have no coastal zone management areas or coral reefs. In the case the planner needs additional guidance on how to reach and effect determination for that particular SEC, the system offers the SEC guides. By just clicking on the SEC guide, a new modal will open, and it will provide a step-by-step process for evaluating that resource and assisting the planner reaching an effects determination according to that SEC. And the SEC guides are very similar to the National Procedure Guide sheets that are embedded into our CPA 52 worksheet. One important thing to point out here is that the effect analysis entries in the SEC guides and SEC page sync automatically for a seamless documentation experience. Under the planner finalization page is where the planner reviews all the entries and confirms completeness and certifies that the environmental evaluation is accurate and complete before routing it to the responsible federal official. This is where the planner also electronically signs the record, ensuring that all required fields and attachments are included. The system also allows others who have contributed to the environmental evaluation to provide comments and also apply their signature. This helps support accountability and transparency throughout the environmental review process. So anytime a signature is applied, the system looks at the business rules to make sure that they're satisfied and ensures data integrity. So if any required fields are missing, the system provides warnings and prevents certification until they are resolved. And this helps maintain high quality and complete environmental records. On the RFO approval page, this is where the RFO reviews, concurs, and approves the environmental evaluation record, ensuring that the action meets all the NEPA and NRCS policy requirements. Once the planner has completed the EE, it is routed to the RFO for review and approval. Similar to the planner finalization page, when the RFO makes a determination of significance evaluation, identifies a NEPA compliance finding, and provides a rationale for that finding, the system enforces the business rules, such as requiring that all mandatory fields and signatures are completed before the record can be finalized, including any items that have been flagged as additional analysis required. Not only does the system support secure electronic signatures, but it also provides for a signature history that is logged in the system for accountability and audit purposes. And last but not least, the attachments page lets us upload supporting documents such as any required permits, correspondence, analysis, or any additional designs or mitigation plans that are part of the EE and it needs to be associated with the record for future reference. Once the document has been added to the record, the user can preview, download, or upload the files to the document management system for future retrieval. Once the environmental evaluation is complete or has reached a point where it could be exported as a PDF, there's an export functionality here, and the export functionality will allow the user to select your SEC concerns with questions and answers. This is in reference to the guides. Include any of the attachments that have been uploaded, signature history, as well as the list of tracks and land units associated with the EE. Once the export is complete, you can navigate to the place where the file was saved. You can open the zip file and select the appropriate file. The document will open as a PDF and will include all the data inputs and selections as recorded on the CDEE tool. Okay, another key feature we want to share is that the system allows for a workflow status indicator, which is displayed on the top right-hand side of the window. So as you move through the evaluation, and complete the required fields, the status will automatically update as you hit save. So it will go from in progress to approval needed or further analysis required. As you can see, the status has changed from in progress to set for RFO, attention needed, once the certified planner signature was applied. And these workflow status indicators will also help inform work lists and tasking functionalities, which will further assist planners and RFOs to efficiently manage EE records within the system. Okay, the last functionality we'd like to share is the copy function. So whenever a planner initiates the environmental evaluation process, they have two options. They can create an environmental evaluation from scratch, or they can navigate to an existing EE record and under the Actions button, copy that record. And when you hit copy, the user will be prompted to select which sections they would like to copy over, in which case file they want the new copy record to reside. And the record will automatically be added to the table here. And upon opening that record, you'll note that the majority of the inputs across the pages have already been populated based on the existing record that was copied over. So this will make it simple for field offices to access standardized scenarios without recreating common analysis from scratch. And of course, this will save time and will promote consistency across work units. So not only can we copy an EE within existing records, but there's also an option for templates. We have two subcategories, My Templates and State Templates. My Templates are EE records that you have saved that could be utilized across any case use. And these are created at the local level within the user. For state templates, these are individuals who have the appropriate roles in CD, and they will be allowed to create EE templates for the state so that field offices can refer to them in any point in time. All right, so this concludes our demonstration. As you can see, with the integrated templates, copy functionalities, business rules, e-signatures, and the robust reporting, CDEE supports field staff, area offices, and state office in meeting the NEPA requirements and delivering better services to our customers. So we hope that we'll maximize our compliance responsibilities and offer the time savings that we are all after. All right, so we hope you've been able to see the great progress made to this date, but we also recognize that more work is to be done. So on that note, what can we expect in the future? So there's ongoing development as we speak that will build on our current momentum with plans for deeper integration of geospatial data. We want to draw from national, state, and partner agency resources, including working in direct coordination with the department's Permitting and Technology Action Plan. We're also actively pursuing other key features, such as work lists and tasking to help states and field offices better manage the growing number of environmental evaluation records that you'll find in the system and allow you to track their status accordingly. Now, all of this with the overarching goal to further enhance the utility and reach of this tool. Now, as far as national adoption, it is forecasted and projected for October 2025. But as you can see in the fine print, this is subject to change. And I'll repeat that again. This is subject to change and very likely to change. This is partly because we are focused on making sure a fully ready and viable product is completed by the end of this fiscal year. However, for this to happen, we need to ensure that the tool is fully operational, meets all the performance expectations, and of course, delivers on the results it was designed for. More importantly, we need to make sure that ongoing resources are allocated and prioritization in product improvements and feature enhancements continue to be supported moving forward. Next slide. All right, so in summary, as you all could see, the CDEE tool enhances efficiency and consistency across all levels of the agency by standardizing environmental review processes and reducing manual data entry. And this not only improves regulatory compliance and data-driven decision-making, but also allows field staff to spend less time on administrative tasks and greater time assisting customers directly, ultimately leading to a better client service and support. Next slide. All right, so we hope you find this agency effort exciting and see the value it brings to our work and the services we provide to our customers. For additional resources, please consider exploring the CD and CART lesson plans, as well as the extended version of the demo that are hyperlinked on this slide. And as always, feel free to contact your national and regional NEPA subject matter experts. We are always ready to assist and support states during this transition period. All right, so this concludes our portion of today's presentation. So thank you all again for your interest and attention. And up next, I'd like to turn over to David Manti, National Wetland Highly Erodible Land Conservation Specialist, who's going to provide a bit of a background on the agency's responsibilities regarding HEL and wetland compliance.
Thank you, Jeremy. Hi, everyone. My name is David Manti. I'm a highly erodible land and wetland conservation specialist supporting science and technology. We're going to spend some time talking about the highly erodible land and wetland conservation provisions and a couple tools that help us perform duties associated with those provisions. Next slide. Yeah. Participation in farm programs is voluntary, yet participants receiving financial benefits must follow certain provisions in order to remain eligible for those benefits. The highly erodible land conservation and wetland conservation provisions, collectively referred to as HELCWC, are provided by the Food Security Act of 1985 as amended, what we call the Farm Bill. They're implemented by the Department of Agriculture through the regulations, that would be 7 CFR Chapter 12, and we put those into practice through agency policy. Farm Service Agency Policy would be 6 CP, and then NRCS policy would be the National Food Security Act Manual, what we call the NFSAM. According to the Farm Bill, persons who convert wetlands to make production of an ag commodity possible or plant commodity crops on a converted wetland or plant commodity crops on highly erodible lands without proper land treatments in place are ineligible for certain farm program benefits. 2 tasks that NRCS performs in implementing these provisions are completing annual conservation status reviews and making highly erodible land and wetland determinations. The highly erodible land and wetland conservation provisions of the Farm Bill help to reduce soil loss, and protect other natural resources. These provisions apply to all land enrolled in the farm programs that are highly erodible or wetlands, unless NRCS determines an exemption applies. Persons receiving financial assistance must certify compliance with the provisions. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Chen, Natural Resource Specialist, to provide some additional details on the compliance review module in Conservation Desktop and its use.
Just a quick interruption, team. I'm not getting Jennifer Chen's camera. Jennifer, can you check that quickly?
Sure thing.
Thanks so much. Okay, I'm still not getting your camera, so we'll go to slides and you can speak there until we can get your camera.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Okay.
And I'll make faces in the meantime since no one can see me. No, I'm teasing. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Jennifer Chen, as David mentioned. Appreciate the handoff, David. And as he mentioned, I'm here to talk about the process that we use to complete Food Security Act compliance status reviews. And appreciate David giving a nice background for why the agency conducts this work and completes this information. And of course, want to showcase how we document that within our systems. So again, the purpose of these reviews is to determine compliance with highly erodible land and wetland conservation provisions of the Farm Bill. So though the agency has been completing compliance status reviews for some time, the process to complete these was moved into Conservation Desktop this year. Food Security Act reviews were the first review workflow that was moved into Conservation Desktop, but there are plans to include additional review types in the future. So again, the idea here is that our Food Security Act annual compliance status reviews were the first to move in, but we'll see additional development going forward with additional review types. It's great to see that this has been moved into Conservation Desktop because it really allows us access to a lot of other resources that currently exist within the system. So you can think about other features within CD, things like map interface, the geospatial layers that we reference and associate within our work, document storage functionality, and more functions that we can utilize and leverage within Conservation Desktop now that we've got our Food Security Act reviews over into that system. Why did we move this information into Conservation Desktop? Well, we had a previous older system that we had been using to document these reviews, but it was an outdated system that had to be deprecated. So we needed to move that workflow and that process over somewhere. And of course, CD makes logical sense to do so. Again, just because of the integration that I spoke about. Again, integration within Conservation Desktop not only allows us to utilize existing functionality within the system, but also sets the stage for us to do additional integration with things such as Farm Service Agency data with regards to farm and tract information as well as client information. So before we switch to a demo of the tool itself, I just want to draw your attention to a few key items within the Conservation Desktop Compliance Review interface. You'll see a full demo, but you can see on the slide right now the interface itself where you would access compliance reviews within CD. Compliance review interface includes both the review state and county information, as well as the location state and county for each review. I'll talk more about that as we dig into the details. Each review is represented in the system and contains a survey. The survey is the actual questions and answers that you'll be populating in order to complete or conduct the review. And as we get into the demo, you'll see that within that survey, you'll be provided some information that gives you an update to the condition or the status of that review based on the responses that you provide. Another functionality you'll see demonstrated is that certain users within the state and national offices will have some additional permissions They'll be able to reopen and or delete reviews. So if there were information that were entered in error or a review that was added to the system in error, there'll be ways for state and national staff to be able to manage those records, correct that information, to maintain data integrity. And then lastly, but certainly not least, I'll be demonstrating the compliance review details report. This report came out just as of today with the latest software release, but it allows users to run reports for compliance reviews, allowing you to run rather large data sets for, say, statewide reports, and also allows you to locate those reviews that are located in your state and county or administered within your state and counties. So as I mentioned, we'll show a demonstration of the tool. However, we cannot show all the functionality. So we only have an opportunity to provide some of that within this meeting. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that there are additional resources to support you within the Food Security Act Compliance Review interface. Of course, first and foremost, your state technical lead would be your first point of contact. These folks are usually in your state office on the ecological sciences or technology staff. There is also a SharePoint site for annual compliance reviews related information. It includes some video recordings of some more in-depth trainings that we've provided. It includes lesson plans that walk you through step-by-step how to work within the system. And also includes some additional support resources for conducting this workload in your state, including template letters that you can use for correspondence with clients. So again, a lot of good resources there available to you. All right, with that, let's shift gears and take a brief tour of the compliance review module within Conservation Desktop. All right, let's take a look at an overview of the compliance review module in Conservation Desktop. We're going to take a look at the interface for compliance reviews, search and results. We'll do that by going to Search Compliance Reviews. We're also going to take a look at completing a review, replacing a review, and then lastly, taking a look at a report that's available to view data associated with the Food Security Act compliance reviews. So we'll go ahead and search for reviews. Search by review year, which for Food Security Act equals the calendar year. We can search by review state. And once we select a state, we have the ability to search counties. We can search all counties or a subset of counties, but note within this interface, we're limited to 500 records. If I know the county, I can select from the list, or I can type in the name. I will note here that in this search interface, this review state and review county corresponds to the state and county the review is administered out of. So this would be the office responsible for completing the review. I'll go ahead and hit search. You see a listing of results below. I want to talk a little bit about what you see. You can see there are 7 reviews. We see the type of review, the name of the review, again, the year, review state, county, the status, who last worked on the review, and then the due date. For Food Security Act reviews, the due date is the last day of the calendar year. Your state might have imposed earlier deadlines for this work, but the system is going to reflect that drop dead date of the last day of the calendar year. Once a review is completed, the date completed would show up here. And then lastly, we have actions, which allows us to do a number of items, which I'll get to in just a moment. But before I do, I want to talk about the review name. You can see the names displayed here, and the format for the name includes the following. It includes the track number associated with the review, the location county, and the location state. So this location information corresponds to where the tract is physically located. So you can see here the 4th row down, 6454 Miami, Indiana, indicates to me that this review is for tract 6454, which is physically located in Miami County, Indiana. This, although the office that administers this tract is actually the Howard County office. Let's go ahead and show how to complete the review. So again, each review has an associated survey. And if I select View Survey, I'll go ahead and load that on the screen. The survey is the actual questions that need to be completed to complete the review. All right, now that the survey has opened, we can see how the survey is laid out. We have a summary of information at the top, including the name, type, and other detailed information that we reviewed on the main screen. Well, we also have a status and a condition. So the status is going to indicate the overall progress made within the survey, and the condition is going to update to reflect what the condition of the review would be based on the answers that are populated. So both of these will be updated as you complete the survey to give you that information before you complete or submit the survey. The first section, excuse me, the first section corresponds to the validity of the review. So is this a valid track to review? And the two questions to answer are, is the track number still current? And are any persons associated with the tract still participating in USDA programs? If the answer to either of these questions is no, the system is going to update to show, one, that a replacement review is needed. This is no longer a valid review. And because a replacement is needed, the status of the review is ready to submit. So if this were the situation for this review, the user could scroll down and select Submit. That would complete this review and indicate that the review must be replaced with another. Conversely, if this tract is still current and if the persons associated with the tract are still participating in USDA programs, this is a valid review, so the user would keep going. Note the status is in progress and allows us to continue to the next sections of the review. We have a section titled Wetlands to identify if there are wetlands or potential wetlands on the tract. If there are, the user would indicate whether there are any potential violations. If this answer is yes, the Wetlands Evaluation Code updates to a potential wetland violation, and the user is required to explain the possible violation. If I select no, Wetlands Evaluation updates to a not a potential violation, and the user can proceed to the highly erodible land section of the survey. The user will respond if there are agricultural commodity crops being produced on the tract, as well as are there fields that could be HEL on the tract. If yes, then the user would identify if there is gully erosion present. And if the answer to that question is yes, the user will be required to add comments to explain what has been done to address the erosion and what needs to be done. Again, this relates back to the compliance for HEL and wetland provisions. So depending on the responses, the survey will update to reflect the condition of compliant or non-compliant, or there are a couple options that include a variance. More details on all these parameters are outlined in the training resources that we referenced earlier in the presentation. If I select no, now we go down to the bottom of the survey, which identifies some of the summary information with how the survey was completed, whether we did a full or partial review of the land, the crop year that was used, whether this review is part of a quality assurance plan, the number of acres that were evaluated, if there is a contract or easement, how much time it took to complete the review. And this would be not just the completion of the survey here in Conservation Desktop, but evaluating the review overall. And then we would select a compliance determination. You can see there are a variety of options, and again, the details of when to select what are contained in the resources that we referenced previously. We'll go ahead and select a determination. In this case, it's fully applied and maintaining all the practices, which gives a compliant condition. Because we've populated the full survey, all the required information, the status is ready to submit. Conversely, if we were to select another type of determination code, as in conditionally actively applying, the condition would update to reflect compliance with variance. This indicates that it's conditionally compliant as a variance, and that means that this review would appear on next year's list to also be reviewed. And again, you can see here there are a variety of selections that are available. Conversely, if the client was not actively applying conditions, they would have a condition of non-compliant. And again, because the data are populated, we could go ahead and submit. So now that we're finished through the survey itself, let's talk a little bit about the buttons at the bottom. Cancel allows you to back out of this survey without saving any of the information. The Save button allows you to save the data but not submit the record. And last but not least, the Submit is what actually completes this record and shows the status of completed back on the main screen. Users would select the Submit button when you are finished with the survey, information is correct, and you are ready to move on and no further action is needed to complete the review for this year. Once the user submits the record, it becomes not editable and again shows the status of completed. Let's take a look at that. Okay, system updates to show a success message that the survey has been submitted. Note the only option down below is to close, and also that the survey becomes read-only. If I close out of this record, Security Act Compliance Review for 6454 Miami, Indiana is now shows as completed by Jennifer Chen on July 15th. Users at the state and national levels can actually reopen the review in order to make edits. To do that, users with appropriate permissions, this would be State Program Manager permissions, can come into the Actions icon and select Reopen. If I reopen a review, the status updates and is no longer completed, but it's back to in progress, and the survey itself is editable. Again, we can see that we can update the information. Let's talk a little bit about replacing. So I mentioned that if the tract or the persons are no longer valid, then the review would need to be replaced. So let's take a look at 5713 Carroll, Indiana. And we're going to say in this scenario that the tract is no longer current. Again, a replacement is required and this review can be submitted. Survey has been submitted, we'll close. And we can see that 5713 has been updated to indicate a replacement required status. If a review has this replacement required status, it must be replaced with another tract to do another review. The replace function is also available under Actions. So for a review that has the status of replacement required, the replace review option becomes available. The system will update to reflect the replace compliance review workflow. We'll identify the reason for the replacement. We can add additional comments. And then we're going to move through the workflow and identify a new tract number to replace the one that needs replaced. Note in this interface that the location, state, and county name are not editable. This is because when we're doing a replacement, we should be looking to replace the tract or the review with another tract and review in the same location, state, and county. However, it might be administered out of a different office, which means we are able to update the admin county to reflect the office that actually administers the tract. And in this case, we'll assume the same, or in our hypothetical, we'll identify that Howard County is the admin county, although it is physically located in Carroll. Back to the Add Client screen. We can see here the clients associated with the existing review. This is the one that we're replacing, and we can make updates as necessary. Again, the idea here is that if we can replace the initial tract and review with a new tract that's associated not only in the same location county, but with the same client, that is ideal. However, if it is not a valid tract because the participants are no longer participating in programs, we have the ability to search for additional customers and add the appropriate customer that corresponds to the new tract that we are replacing. You can see here the replacement review name is listed here. If we needed to edit or remove any of the customers currently associated, we can do so by selecting Remove Client. We'll select Next. Again, we see the existing review name, the replacement review name, review state, county, and the reason for this new tract or this new review is replacement tract. So let's select Replace. We get one more message as just a warning. We could cancel out of this if this were not correct and go back into the workflow. But if this is correct information, we would select Replace. And now we see back on our main screen, we have not 7 reviews, but we have 8 reviews. We have the 5713, the original that now shows as replaced. And we have the new review, the 5714 that we just created. The last thing I'd like to show is over in the report section of Conservation Desktop. We have a section of reports titled Compliance Review. And we have plans to build out additional reports, but currently the one report that is available is the Compliance Review Details report. This is a great report that allows you to pull large data sets as well as details related to the reviews and surveys. All right, so the review details have opened in a new tab. We have a variety of search parameters. Again, we'll select the review type. Note we see easement monitoring is displayed here, but this is not fully functional. We'll select Food Security Act. We'll select the year. We can identify particular review statuses, review reasons. We can customize the columns that display on the main screen when we generate our results. But I want to draw our attention to the ability to search by review state, location state, as well as review and location counties. This is really helpful because I can come in here, for example, and select the review state for Indiana, which will give me a listing of all of the reviews administered within the state of Indiana. Conversely, I could select all states under review state and update the location state to Indiana. This would give me a listing of reviews in any state that have land physically located in Indiana. So there's a lot of opportunity here to make sure that we are aware of the work going on for Food Security Act compliance reviews within our states. Last but not least, there is an option to include decision maker only or include all clients. So if decision maker only true is selected, when the report is generated, it will list each review as one row, displaying the name and address information for the decision maker only. However, if you select false and generate the report, you might see, or likely will see, a review listed in several rows, one for each client associated with the review. And that allows you to have information that corresponds to not just the decision maker, but also any associated customers. Now we can see the reviews are listed multiple times based on the number of clients within each review. For example, 476 Adams, Indiana has the decision maker listed as David Hill with the associated address and has another additional client of Doug Hill, again with his address. If I scroll to the right, I can see additional information would be populated related to this review. I can export this report to Excel, and that allows me additional functionalities to filter, do mail merge for correspondence letters, and the like. So again, this has been just a brief tutorial of some of the functionality within the Compliance Review module. I would really encourage you to review the resources for additional information on managing reviews, as well as some of the additional options through reports. Thank you. All right, let's take a look at an overview. All right, appreciate your time there all, and I'll turn it over back to David Monti to discuss some additional details with regards to the HELC WC requests tracker in Conservation Desktop.
Thank you, Jennifer. With NRCS's duty of making and issuing highly erodible land and wetland determinations comes the requirement to work efficiently and to track and report annual workload to Congress. As part of an effort to increase efficiencies and workload tracking capabilities in our work, NRCS developed the Highly Erodible Land Conservation and Wetland Conservation Determination Request Tracking Tool, Conservation Desktop. Use of this tracking tool is required in policy at National Food Security Act Manual, Section 510.20. And that revision just went out last March. The tracking tool provides Farm Service Agency with access to Conservation Desktop so that they can enter in all highly erodible land and wetland determination requests that are received on Form 1026 or 569. Note that NRCS still enters requests for wetland determinations that are received on our Form CPA 38 for those states who still use that form. FSA and NRCS are able to monitor progress and access documents related to requests and completed determinations. Through Conservation Desktop, NRCS can use work lists to find and complete requests, all within a system that tracks and even updates the status throughout the workflow. The requests are geospatially located using the Common Land Unit layer, and work can be tracked through multiple reports that are available. The request status in the tracking tool informs Conservation Desktop and ultimately the field, state, and national compliance staff of which determinations are complete or not. Generally speaking, a determination is complete when it is sent to the participant. It is important to remember when completing determinations to enter the date preliminary determination sent value. Once this date is entered, the system will automatically update the status to preliminary issued, which is one of the statuses that counts as complete. As long as a request sits in preliminary pending or unassigned status, it will continue to be considered incomplete. Your state technical leads for training and resources related to the tracking tool can vary by state. There are lesson plans that can be found on the Conservation Desktop and CART SharePoints. You can find those and additional training resources on the Highly Erodible Land Conservation and Wetland Conservation SharePoint site under the subheading HELCWC Determinations Tracking Tool. I'll show this location in a brief demonstration. And now I'd like to present you with a quick demonstration of how the tracking tool is used. Hello, and welcome to this quick demonstration of the Highly Erodible Land Conservation and Wetland Conservation Determination Request Tracking Tool in Conservation Desktop. I'm going to walk you briefly through creating a new request from start to finish. I'll point out date received and explain why that's important. We'll look at adding CLU layers to a request and uploading documents. Finally, we'll talk briefly about appeals. I do also want to point out this demonstration is going to gloss over very many details for the sake of timeliness, but there are multiple sources for training materials for this tracking tool. One of those is the Highly Erodible Land and Wetland Conservation SharePoint site. From the landing page of that SharePoint site, you can click on the subheading HELCWC Determination Tracking Tool. That will open a folder with several resources, including lesson plans we put together for Farm Service Agency users. And I will note that the FSA user lesson plans are also extremely helpful for NRCS users. The request starts off with Farm Service Agency entering either a 1026 or a 569 request. NRCS can still enter the request received on what we call Form CPA 38. FSA will come into Conservation Desktop, and up at the top right in the blue main menu bar, we'll select the HELCWC menu button. This will open up the HELCWC requests search screen. What you'll notice above the gray search criteria area is a tiny plus sign and the text, Add New Request. Click on that to add a new determination request. This opens up the new request data entry fields. The request category will be new in most cases, though there are some that are previous certified. State, service center, and county information will be entered. Form type at the top right of the data field will either be the AD 1026 or the FSA 569, except where NRCS is entering the CPA 38. I've selected wetland conservation for WC for this example. It could be that the 1026 triggers both a wetland determination and an HEL determination. If so, you can select both of those, and that will end up generating two separate requests that will be tracked separately. The info option would be for those 1026 that have only question 7C marked yes, the information only copies. I want to draw special attention to the date received, the date the 1026, 569, or 38 is received. This means the date that it was received by NRCS. This is not the date that FSA or a participant signed a 1026, but the date that FSA referred it to NRCS, the date NRCS has received it, which is really the date that FSA is entering the request into this tracking tool. There's a drop-down calendar that staff can use to select today, or you can hand enter it. For demonstration purposes, because I want to cover some appeals scenarios later, I've stepped back in time to July of 2024 for this one. So having entered in all of that information, the next step is to search for and add the client. The client is anyone listed on the 1026 or the 569. I'm glossing over this for the sake of time, but as I mentioned earlier, there are lesson plans available that walk through each step in a very detailed manner. So you'll select the client and hit save. After the client is selected and saved, you will be taken to the main menu request screen. Notice at the very top left, we see the person association, and below that is the new request ID. It starts off with WC because I entered this one as a wetland request. That's followed by the state abbreviation and the fiscal year of the request, and finally a sequential number. The next step is going to be to add a common land unit to the request. In the left menu bar, click Add Remove CLUs and enter in the relevant state, county, farm, and tract data. Then hit search. Having hit search, you'll notice that the farm has populated into the search results. When I select that in the search results, you'll notice a purple rectangle out there in my map view. That's the common land unit layer for this particular tract. I will then select Add to Request. Now, in the top right of this box, you see the CLU has been added into the request, and I get a green Successfully Added message. The final step for an FSA user at this point is to upload the necessary documents. And so if you look at the top right of my screen, in that blue main menu bar, there's a yellow box around Documents. You'll select it, and it will pop up the screen you're looking at now. And you will click Upload New Document. This is going to pop up a window where you select the document category, for example, WC request, and the document type, for example, AD 1026 request. You will choose the file to navigate to where your file is currently stored, and then upload. Now the document is uploaded into the request. From here, you can click the eyeball symbol so you can view the pages of the document to ensure they are all there. In this case, we have a 1026 request, so we're looking for a properly completed 1026 and associated map and information. So you'll notice here there's a 1026. The first page is completely filled out. We have a X on question 7A. That's going to trigger the wetland determination. Part C down at the bottom is completely filled out with all the relevant information. Page 2 of the 1026 has all the relevant signatures we need, the participant and FSA. And note that on the associated map, Farm Service Agency has clearly indicated where the determination is being requested. So that's it from Farm Service Agency users' part in this process until the determination is completed, and then NRCS will upload the determination documents for Farm Service Agency to access. NRCS, now being made aware that there's a new determination request, will come in again up at the top blue main menu bar and select HELCWC to bring up the search screen. The user will enter in search criteria relevant for their service area to find the request. You can see I highlighted the one that we entered for this demonstration, WC-HI2024-1. Clicking on that will bring up the request menu, and the user will select request details to bring up the request details screen. I want to draw attention to the request status. Just underneath the heading request details, you see state, service center, county, and request status. The system has auto-assigned a status of preliminary unassigned. So let's say I assign this to myself. Upon save, notice that the request status is now set to preliminary pending. So I received the determination, I assigned it to myself, the status is updated. Now I go and I conduct the preliminary wetland determination. Once I have completed that determination, I'll come in and enter the date that it was finished. But before this request is considered complete, I must also enter the date preliminary determination sent value, which is just below the preliminary determination date. You'll see it here. Notice now that I have both the determination date and the determination sent entered. The status is now updated to preliminary issued. This determination will now be considered complete in the tool. The next thing for NRCS to do after completing this in the tool will be for us to upload the NRCS portion of the documents. That's going to be the wetland determination in this case, which at a minimum will be the certified wetland map, the CPA 026WC, and the transmittal letter with appeal rights to the person. The requirement to load these documents into the tracking tool and conservation desktop is required by policy at National Food Security Act Manual, section 510.20, and it's for the purpose of of making these documents readily available to Farm Service Agency. So now what we have is a determination that's been issued, and let's say the person wants to appeal. Before that appeal can be entered, the date participant received preliminary determination value must be entered. Now that I have the received date entered, I can come over to my left menu and click Appeal Details. This will open my Appeal Details window, and I will click on Add New Appeal. Notice the appeal type is either reconsideration or mediation. You may be wondering why County Committee or National Appeals Division appeals are not here yet. That's because we're still just in preliminary issued status. We have a preliminary determination and therefore preliminary appeals, which are reconsideration and mediation. So I select reconsideration. I go through and enter the relevant information such as date appealed. I assign it to myself. Again, since this was my own preliminary determination, I would be the one to provide the reconsideration to the person at this point. And upon save, I see the request status has changed from preliminary issued to preliminary appealed. And then in my appeals information box, I have an active appeal status for this reconsideration appeal type. Once the reconsideration is completed and a final is issued, I will enter the final certification date and the date sent. Quick note that for NRCS determinations, if the reconsideration remained adverse, the reconsidered determination remained adverse to the person, I would then send it up to the state office and someone else would complete what we call the second level review. And it would be that other person who would come in afterwards and enter in this final certification information. Now that the final date, the final determination has been sent, you can see that the request status has updated to final issued and the appeal status is completed. Now let's say the person wants to appeal this final decision to National Appeals Division. I again can go into appeal details, add new appeal, and notice the appeal types now are County Committee or National Appeals Division. This is going to be assigned to someone else by this point, probably at the state level, depending on how your particular state is set up. Having entered in all the relevant data and clicking save, my request status is now final appealed. And then I have an active appeal down in the appeals details box. And this concludes the demonstration of adding a new request from start to finish, including adding CLUs, uploading documents, and briefly looking at appeals. For more detailed information and step-by-step processes, please visit the training resources provided on the various SharePoint sites or contact your state technical lead. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're ready to move into questions and answers. There's a lot for Jeremy. So we've got 10 total. It looks like we have 7 questions for Jeremy. So we'll go ahead and just jump right in. The first question, Jeremy, has the CDEE been rolled out as an authorized replacement for the CPA 52 Excel form?
Thank you, Christy. No, the tool hasn't been officially released yet for a national adoption, but we did have a soft release a couple of years ago to test its performance in higher environments, and it was released as version 1.0. In addition to this, we've recently conducted a state pilot testing phase in 10 states across all 3 regions. which identifies some key issues, including performance-related challenges, which are actively being investigated. However, once the tool is ready for national use, we will very likely issue a national directive in the form of a bulletin or instruction to officially communicate its availability and adoption expectations.
All right, thank you. The second question for Jeremy is, how does the planner finalization or RFO approval work if you have a level 1 or 2 planner filling out the EE?
Yes, so the tool allows for additional signatures for anyone who has contributed to the environmental evaluation review. And you can do this by adding a new signature line through the user interface on the planner finalization page.
All right, thank you. We'll go to the next question for Jeremy. Is or can the CDEE be set up to utilize data sets in CD so the software might answer the effect, no effect, or not applicable for SCCs or special environmental concerns? For example, T&E species within 1 mile may be software answered, and the practice plan could determine if it may or may not affect and then be overridden when mitigation or a letter of concurrence is obtained.
Right, yeah, that's a great observation. Unfortunately, on the version 2.0, which we're currently utilizing, it does not offer those capabilities. But as I mentioned earlier, we are exploring incorporating this functionality in future phases of CDEE development. And again, for this to happen, NRCS needs to prioritize ongoing resource allocation and prioritize geospatial analysis integration as a key feature for not only CDEE, but also other NRCS business tools that can benefit from it.
All right, thank you. The next question for Jeremy, is there a way to document additional alternatives that were planned, evaluated, and presented to the client, other practices that address the resource concerns?
Yes, there certainly is. So the CDEE allows the user to add additional alternative as necessary or as applicable. And you will see this functionality at the bottom of the user interface within CDEE, depicted by a button named Add Alternative. And when you click on that button, it will add a second alternative, and it will expand the user interface so that you can populate those sections for the second alternative that you are evaluating as part of the analysis.
All right, great, thank you. The next question for Jeremy, the CDE workflow looks amazing and would make my job far easier. I also think it would improve the quality of work that goes into the CPA 52s. However, I have concerns about whether CD can support this tool when it crashes, has glitches or delays that are common that planners experience. Does CD have the capacity to support the use of this tool?
Yes, another great observation. So, of course, we are concerned about its performance and what that might look like once it is nationally available. But we hope to gain a better understanding on what caused the performance issues with the pilot states and hopefully provide some solutions before its national release.
All right, thank you. And your next question, Jeremy, there was someone trying to follow along with you in CD, but the EE would not load. Is that an issue because of the CD or internet, or perhaps the tool's not available to everyone yet?
Yes, it's not an issue. It's my understanding that the tool is not available yet for all states. As of today, we use a canary release, which allows us to reveal the latest version to the states that have been selected to participate in the pilot phase. But again, once it's available at the national level, we will be communicating that so that states can go in there and see it for themselves in the higher production environment.
All right, and the last question for Jeremy, how will signature requirements be enforced in the EE tool? For example, a certified conservation planner signing or the RFO signing?
Yeah, so certified planner and RFO signature requirements are not enforced based on the user's roles and entitlements. That is the current behavior at the moment, but future enhancements have identified the need to connect users' roles with their ability to sign and approve CDEE records. Now, there are warning flags built as business rules to inform the RFO when critical items are missing. So, we have those things in place, but we hope that in the future that functionality will improve.
All right, thank you. There may be a few more in our chat if you want to look at those, but for now I'm going to jump over and ask. I've got 3 questions for Jennifer Chen on HEL and wetland compliance. The first question, Jennifer, is there a plan to make the FSA wetland points data available in desktop? In the past, our FSA state office was running a script to export the wetland point. We called them wet points to our field office through the share drive. Our offices would greatly benefit from having that data available in CD where wetland determinations are made.
Appreciate that question, and it's a good one. And I'll reiterate that we do have plans now that we've got the interface stood up. We do have plans to better integrate information from Farm Services Agency. In the meantime, I would also encourage, I'm not sure who asked the question, but I would encourage the person who asked the question to reach out to their state contacts, specifically those who work with the geospatial information within your state, as there might be some options to publish some of those data, at least to be viewable in Conservation Desktop.
All right, next question, Jennifer. Can you share the link to the National Annual Compliance Reviews Teams channel?
I will look into that. We do have a national SharePoint site, which might have been what the user was referring to, and we do have a link to that in the slide deck. If there is another reference the user is looking at, we can certainly look to clarify that, but I'm going to infer that that means the national SharePoint site, which again should be accessible via the link in the slide deck.
All right, perfect. And it looks like the last question for you on HEL and wetland compliance. Can the national office select random tracks for reviews that are viable tracks, including active participants and tracks that are currently cropped or highly erodible and or have wetland compliance fields? Our field staff are spending a lot of time pre-screening and replacing tracks for these annual reviews, and it seems to be getting worse. Thanks for your response.
Appreciate it, and appreciate the question, and it's a fair one. Again, I'll point to the fact that we are trying to work to better integrate the systems within Farm Service Agency and our agency work through this module. We're not quite there yet, but that is the kind of the next phase of development we hope to achieve. But there's also a little bit of a gap, timing gap within the fact that the records are pulled for review at a certain time, and then a certain amount of time might pass before the state actually starts to actively work on those reviews. So there is a little bit of a time gap there. We hope to again minimize or at least reduce the data inconsistencies that you see. But I will also point out that we are reliant on the accuracy of the information that is provided for those records by Farm Service Agency. So there's a few things at work there which might be impacting what you're seeing today versus what the records are in the system.
All right, we are still getting some questions in, so I may just have to ask. Yep, I got a thumbs up from Jeremy, so we'll have Jeremy come back on camera here. And there's a few more questions that's just come in. The first one is for this one's for Jeremy, is if a planner does not have a level 1 certification status, can they access the draft EE?
Yes, not currently. So as of today, the system enforces a specific role. So you have to be a certified planner role to access CDEE. However, we've recently made a recommendation to allow non-certified planners to deploy CDEE. So, we expect that when the tool is released at the national level, everyone should be allowed to generate and complete an environmental evaluation within the CDEE tool.
All right, thank you. And then the next one for you, Jeremy, while you're on camera there, is there a timeline for the national release of the CDEE functions?
Yes, the timeline is always the upcoming fiscal year. And in this case, it will be FY26. If you ask the question in FY26, I will say FY27. But yeah, so this is a soft release date. We're doing everything that we can to meet that target, and if we're able to do so, we will. So that's why we've shared that date with states so that you won't be surprised. But again, the fine print says that it's subject to change because there are a lot of things that we cannot control.
All right. And I do have one more question, if you don't mind asking. It says, can the EE cover multiple contracts or practice schedules for the fiscal year? For example, if a customer has 2 EQIP contracts, can they use the same environmental evaluation?
Yes, you can take several approaches. I think it's very similar to the way we utilize the NRCS CPA 52 worksheet. You can have a high overview environmental review that can be applied across multiple planning scenarios. And the same principle applies within the CDEE environment. I think there's a lot of discretion by the planner as well as the RFO to maximize the use of the tool. But the ability to do so within CDEE is there.
All right, thank you. And we did have one question come in for David. I don't know, David, did you want to answer that or wait till we send out the Q&A?
I can answer it.
All right, so this question is for HEL and wetland compliance. After FSA enters a request, how does the field office know to gather the background documentation to submit the wetland team, to submit to the wetland team, since FSA is not bringing hard copies over to the field office anymore?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So Farm Service agencies should be providing all the documentation, all the relevant documentation with a request. FSA is the official record holder. We are aware that there are states where it's NRCS who has been maintaining those records. And so for those states, we would encourage you to develop some SOP, standard operating procedures, either internally or with your FSA counterparts to make sure all that relevant data is provided with the request.
Okay, thank you, David. I believe that's all the questions that's come in. We've had a lot of questions on this user forum, so thank you for the audience for sending those questions in. There is a survey in the Q&A if you want to fill that out, or you can ask additional questions or give us some ideas for improvements. We'll send that out after the invite or after the meeting's over as well. And then post all the information on the NRCS SharePoint site from what you've seen today. But thanks for attending. Like I said, we've had a really good turnout, great questions. So thanks for your feedback for the user forum today. Sorry, I got lost on what I was going to say. So hope you will join us for the next user forum. It's going to be on September the 17th. And at that forum, we're going to cover new customers, the client summary report, assistance notes, which is the new module that came out today, and workload prioritization, requests, and tasking. Until then, thank you and have a great day.